This Coast to Coast Entertainment Network program is brought to you by Beside Me Bracelets. Our bracelets are handmade for any occasion. Use the promo code Coast to Coast for 15% off. Visit their website at besideme.com. Suzanne's Paparazzi Jewelry. With 24-hour shopping available, use the code 160920 and show her some love, like she showed us. Reaper Apparel Company, a commitment to live your most authentic way every single day. Visit reaperapparelco.com for more information and a look at all of their apparel offerings. And by Good Day Embroidery, your local source for custom embroidery, screen printing, and more. Log on to gooddayembroidery.com for more information. As Carlos Santana and Rob Thomas once said, man, it's a hot one, like 7 inches away from the midday sun. A beautiful but still warm and toasty Tuesday evening for another live edition of C2C at Night, recapping all the big sports news and events going on in the wide world of sports in a late-night talk show format. Alongside that man, James Gonzales from Oceanside, California, yours truly, Cal McClurg, joining you here in sunny San Diego, California, on another scorcher here in America's finest city. Mr. Gonzales, great to see you, my man. How we doing tonight?
You know how much I love music lyrics, so that was right there. I'm doing good. The Dodgers are 1 out away from a loss, and that's always a good thing. Yeah, it's been fun in the Olympics, USA running things, and yeah, can't wait to get into some of these topics because a lot of them are thinkers.
There are a lot of great topics, folks, between Major League Baseball, the NBA, the NFL, the Olympic Games, and whatnot going on. But as always, folks, if you're joining us on Facebook, YouTube, or live on Twitch, you're invited to like our page on Facebook or subscribe to us on YouTube, or you can also follow me on my personal Twitch channel at Calamax Sports as well. And, of course, folks, we'll take your live input again, questions, comments, concerns, live on the air. If you are, in fact, joining us here tonight on a beautiful Tuesday evening, drop your commentary in the live chat box. We'll do our absolute best to ensure that your commentary is read live on the air here this evening. Well, James, we were probably looking at some baseball history for all the wrong reasons on Tuesday. But, James, it's over. The Chicago White Sox finally snap a 21-game losing streak tonight at the hands of the Oakland Athletics tonight at the Oakland Coliseum. James, the White Sox, as we knew, man, again, kind of in a way sold off all of their parts during the course of the trade deadline, marred in a massive, again, historical proportion losing streak. They finally end it. But, James, that now makes them 28-88, I believe, on the season. Like, they are right now treading near historical futility in Major League Baseball. James, I know we've seen a lot, man, when it's come to teams who've lost 110, 115, 120 games. But, James, this is going to be probably and arguably the worst single season via win-loss record that you and I will probably see in our lifetime being a baseball fan.
Well, I do have some good news for them in September. They get to play the Angels home and away for 6 games total, so they can get their win total up and try to avoid some history. But, yeah, I was looking at Manuel Vargas. Remember, he was traded before the deadline in that 3-team trade that involved the Cardinals, the Dodgers, and the White Sox. And the loss yesterday, 5-1, and Vargas is just sitting there at the end of the dugout, dejected, saying pretty much, man, I was at the top with the Dodgers. Now I'm at the bottom with the White Sox. But today, winning 5-1, the White Sox break the streak, and it just that must just feel so good just to get rid of that losing streak. There were some things that I read about the losing streak. What was it, since July 10th, I believe, was the last time they won until tonight. But Jay Cutta on Twitter mentioned the moon has fully orbited the Earth since the last time the White Sox won a baseball game. That's 27 days. It's gone around the Earth, the moon. And then the All-Star game, the AL All-Stars won 20 21 days ago, and White Sox was 27 days ago. And then the White Sox stink all the time. Day games, night games, league game, American League games, interleague games, divisional, non-divisional, at home, away, 80 degrees or warmer, or under 80 degrees, sunny or cloudy. They're all ranked 30th. Are the White Sox. That just shows you how bad it really, really was. And they became America's team for the wrong reason. That's what I like to think of when you have these losing streaks. All I could think about earlier this year, and sorry to Adam for this, but when the Detroit Pistons last season went on a 27 game losing streak, I want to say. It made me tune in to whatever game was next, knowing that they were close to history. I saw the White Sox were tied with the 1988 Baltimore Orioles, I want to say, or 87 Orioles, where they started the season 0-21. The record is 24 wins or losses in a row for the 61 Phillies. And fortunately, they got the win to avoid that. This is also a team this year, Callan, that has lost 14 games in a row on a losing streak. And now they had this long of a losing streak. And it just seems like, they have the ability to do it again this month or next month, to have another losing streak. But yeah, like I mentioned, good news are coming for the White Sox in September when you have that 3 home, 3 away with the Angels. That's a get-right team, and they got to get right.
Shout out to our good man, Big B, Brandon Herrera, joining us in the Twin Cities just after midnight on Wednesday over in Minnesota. And shout out to Big B and Tim for their Tuesday morning show of Rank 'em. Again, you can catch them every Tuesday and Thursday morning, 7 a.m. Pacific time, as they rank some of the best things in pop culture, sports, you name it, on Rank 'em every Tuesday and Thursday mornings at 7 a.m. Pacific time, 9 a.m. Central, right here on C2C. But James, I would agree, man, about the mental toll that a losing streak of this magnitude takes. Now, James, to correct you, or to kind of in a way help you out, it was a 28-game losing streak for the Pistons. That was a new record set this year, and also it was Miguel Vargas who got dealt from the Dodgers to the White Sox. But I agree, though, James, about that. For a player like Miguel Vargas, going from the Dodgers, first place ball club, though that lead has been shaved down. But like you said, though, James, you go from like an all-time high to an all-time low that quickly. And the parting shot of even the fan in the seats who even had the sign on Monday, please, guys, just win one game to stop the skid. And again, though, even though they win, though, James, they are still 30 games below 500 at 28-88, I believe. We're talking historically bad here, 120, 121 losses maybe at this rate, where it boils down to where they are. But James, I think of it more, though, for what it's doing, though, to that clubhouse. I think we recall maybe a little bit, Gonzales. I forget the year, though, but that the Diamondbacks lost like 21 straight games on the road. And it got to a very big flashpoint when David Peralta, then a Diamondback, had gone into the dugout and he had begun to shove teammates. Like, he was getting very ticked off about how guys were, kind of in a way laughing about losing on the road. And Peralta was in there, shoving guys and pointing at guys and yelling at guys like, this crap isn't funny. We become a punching bag on the road. And I don't like how you all are treating this losing streak away from Chase Field. And I think that's more about what a skid like this, though, James, can do to a team. It can start to break the mold of the organization. Does this cost Oli Marmol his job, maybe, or the manager for the White Sox? Maybe. Do more guys, start kind of having, altercations like that? I doubt it, though, because of where they are with the record. But it does, though, James, live up here. I've been on teams who've been in the same exact spot, though, like not losing 20, 25, 30 straight games, but even like a 5-game losing streak, an 8-game skid, where I think you start, calling team meetings, you start kind of in a way getting a little physical with your teammates and blah, 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 blah. But but sadly, James, it is a sinking ship that can't be salvaged. And again, I really just feel awful for for the players and for the fans, because James, I think of it more though about where the White Sox were like coming into the COVID year in 2020. I think we were billing them in the Padres in those first 4 years of like legitimate World Series contenders. The White Sox had this very young, intriguing group of Tim Anderson and, Eloy Jimenez, Luis Robert, that great pitching staff. Like they were billed to being like world beaters in the American League Central and in the AL. Same with the Padres, maybe not challenging the Dodgers, but at least kind of being in there. And now, James, look at it now 4 years later, and how in polar opposite directions these two teams have gone. And James also wanted to clarify for me, the D-backs lost 24 straight road games in 2021, which again led me to what I was saying about David Peralta, again out here pushing and shoving teammates and yelling at teammates in the dugout while they were losing games, mainly here in San Diego. But James, I think you would agree though, man, about how much though that like San Diego and Chicago were both kind of like in the conversation for the World Series or being legitimate contenders back as early as 2020. But now, though, James, one team is trending in the right direction. The other team is messing with a lot of major league records that have not been set since like the 1890s.
I'm trying to remember. I think I was at a series I think it was one of the last home series for the Padres in 2022. And it happened to be the White Sox against the Padres. And everybody thought, this would be a fun World Series. Obviously, the White Sox didn't get there, and the Padres were a step off. But looking at the White Sox, they're 60 games under 500. I can't believe that. 28. I don't care if they won tonight.
Unheard of. It is unheard of.
I'm sure that's happened with the 62 Mets and other teams, but to have a team like that nowadays do that, and you think you're talking about the whole organization, right? So not only did they have a minor fire sale, because they should be honest, Crochet screwed himself. Robert is still there, which I don't get. I don't get the Baltimore move for Jimenez. I think he doesn't fit that team well, but I don't think Baltimore gave up too much for that. But you look at, and luckily I was just watching a video from Tree today about the White Sox and how they had a scandal back in the 19th century, and now you have one in the 21st century of an ownership, one guy, Reinsdorf, who has taken the Bulls from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows and just wanted to stay barely relevant, right? They're not out here making big moves, the Bulls. And then with the White Sox, it's worse. And then he hires from within. He hires former White Sox people. He brought Tony La Russa back, which was a disaster. He fell asleep twice in the locker room. Or I'm sorry, in the dugout.
In the middle of the game.
Yeah. And then he was told by fans twice to get a pinch runner out there for one of his men who made it to first. And then he had to, I think, prematurely retire again. Then this year, and I knew this wasn't going to be a good move, you already had Grifol, which is dead man walking anyway.
Yeah, I think I confused him with Ollie Marmol from the Cardinals. My apologies for that.
And Marmol should be on a list, but he got rewarded with a 3-year extension, which doesn't make sense.
Still makes no sense.
He was on the hot seat. But you look at who was hired for the GM. It was Chris Getz, one of the former White Sox from the 2010s or 2008 or whatever. So they just hire from within. And they don't think outside of the box, and that's really hurting them. And to think about this, their best hitter all year long is gone. So Tommy Pham was their best guy. And remember, he signed pretty much at the end of spring training, I want to say.
Very early into the season.
That's right. And he was their best player, and now he's gone. He's happy back in St. Louis. It's funny to see him. I haven't seen him smile that much ever. And he's been back with the Cardinals and having fun. But, man, it's amazing just how this franchise, they weren't one of the best. You know, they went on a great run in '05 to win the World Series. They went back to playoffs in '08. You mentioned 2020. They got to that wild card game, I think it was in Oakland. 21, I think they were in the playoffs, I want to say. And then ever since then, they've either made the wrong moves. Jose Abreu, they did get something right. Jose Abreu was not re-signed. He had one great year in Houston, and now he is a free agent this year because he was hitting less than his jersey number. Um, so they have a lot to get right. The Angels did help them out last year with the trade and for not Dylan Cease, but Lucas Giolito. They did get the Angels like second and I think second and third best prospects. So Kai Bush and Edgar Guerrero, starter and a catcher, and they got to start somewhere. And I don't know how Vargas will do with him, but I didn't think he was going to be anything special with LA. But there's just a lot that needs to be revamped. Like them, the Angels, the A's, all need to restart whatever they're doing, delete the franchise and play it over again like you're on the show. All the owners need to sell the team. None of that will happen. But and the one thing, I don't fear that they're going to move anywhere. I think eventually they'll get a deal done for a ballpark. I don't know where. But I remember last year there were rumors that they were going to go to Nashville. They were just done with the area around Guarantee Rate Field. They were just done with that area. There's no Cobb County type of infrastructure. I know everybody's trying to get that now. But man, the White Sox have a long way to go, and they're on the wrong side of history. Again, being 60 games out. I never thought a team in this generation would be that bad because you figure, okay, numbers will get you wins, right? That's what the feeling was, and it's just a lot of misery right now on the South Side.
A lot of misery and suffering. And Brandon even says, James, if they even win out, they still finish the year below 500. I mean, that's a Herculean task having to win an entire 2020 COVID-shortened season in a row to even get close to 500. But again, folks, the suffering is over for the White Sox. The 21-game skid finally over at the hands of the soon-to-be Sacramento/Las Vegas A's. James, I wanted to quickly get to the other big story in baseball in kind of a quick nutshell, but more on the human side, of course, James. We knew, of course, that Dodger first baseman Freddie Freeman had been away from the ball club for over 2 weeks after his 3-year-old son, Maximus, was suffering from a very rare illness that I have personally known that has happened to a fellow professional athlete, which is, and I think I'm pronouncing it wrong, though, but GBS, or Guillain-Barré syndrome, is what really, in a way, stunned him and his wife. Their 3-year-old son, Maximus, who's been suffering from GBS, had to be rushed to the hospital. He was basically in full paralysis mode when he got to the hospital, and Freddie and his wife were attending to him. And again, Freddie was away for a couple of weeks. Got a very, I think, well-deserved, wholehearted standing ovation before his first AB on Monday. It was cool to see Bryce Harper embrace him at first base, and Nick Castellanos taking his hat off and saluting him from right field, and the ovation going on. And I'm really glad he wasn't dinged for a pitch clock violation during that moment. But James, I heard this, I think, on Monday, and even thought about it today, is that this is where you put aside your disdain for the organization he plays for, and you have to remember that these athletes, regardless of how much they get paid, they are human beings like us. They suffer from, they suffer these setbacks just like the average Joe does, who armchair, coaches the team, or armchair GMs from his, from their bedroom or basement. And to see Freddie come back, get the ovation he deserved, the support from across the game, all the players wearing, the Max Strong T-shirts on Monday at batting practice. I just can't imagine, James, being in that spot. leaving your other family, your ball club for a full 2 weeks, missing that much game time, and then having to try to come back, play the game at a high level, and then get that reception from not just your fan base, but from the opposing team, and above all else, James, from the fans around the game of baseball.
Yeah, I read, excuse me, I heard something about Freeman mentioning, like, oh, that was the best strikeout I ever had, was that first at bat with the Dodgers, back with the Dodgers, I should say. Touching scene there at Dodger Stadium on Monday night. The embrace from Bryce Harper. That was a really good thing. You don't wish that upon your biggest enemy. We all
Exactly.
know the Dodgers are the biggest enemy of us, but when it comes to something like that, you hope everybody's fine, and Max is going to be as strong as his name right now and fight this. And the good news that he was out of the hospital, at home resting, that's all you want to hear. You know, all the time you saw Freddie Freeman through the free agency process, through the World Series in 2021, you always saw family with him. Always had the family, the boys, and the wife with
Always
him.
had Charlie with them whenever they would play the Padres.
And the the move to the Dodgers, I know, was highly scrutinized, but everybody loves him no matter what, and loves the family no matter what. So yeah, that was a touching moment. Something, as we play back the moments of 2024 in MLB, that'll be right up there on the emotional side.
Without a doubt, and like I said, James, is that there's times where the value of life outweighs a win or a loss on the baseball field, on the football field, the hockey rink, the basketball court. We only get one life to live. We might as well live it to the fullest. And sometimes, you can sacrifice a couple of games to attend to, deaths in the family, wives in labor, what have you. And certainly just a very classy gesture by the Phillies to, let Freddie take that, that AB, despite the strikeout, of course. But, I think Freddie even said that Bryce Harper had been texting him like 4 times a day asking, hey, can me and the wife help? Can our organization help you guys out? And again, that I think, James, that's what's more so lost in the shuffle when something like this happens, where, the local team's community gets rocked by a tragedy, or one of their own gets, something like this happens. I know that we're not, James, back in the days of like the 70s or 80s where guys, where we were supposed to, players were supposed to hate the other team, basically. Have we forgotten here that these guys are basically coworkers underneath the same, employer and company with Major League Baseball? They happen to play for different small organizations who are underneath the umbrella of the corporate ladder, basically. Like, just because you see guys hug each other before a game does not mean that they don't take the game seriously. Like, that moment, though, of Bryce Harper embracing Freddie Freeman at first base, Nick Castellanos tipping his cap from right field. Like, that is the beauty of sports. It doesn't have to be always about, well, hey, you play for this team, you're supposed to hate them. That's not, James, where these guys are nowadays. That's why we see so much of the, fantasizing going on before games are played, or when guys go to first base. They'll probably, again, they're probably asking, how's the wife? How's the kids? Do you need help with something? Because again, we don't know what really goes on behind or once those guys are on the field of play during pregame moments or during the course of a game like this.
Yeah, a couple of things came to mind. I think John Randall, the Hall of Fame edge rusher, edge rusher for the NFL, he would make a sack, but right away he would help the quarterback up and say, "Oh, how the kids doing?" So I always think of that when you mention,
Andrew Luck kind of comes to mind too.
Oh, definitely. There's always these mic'd up moments, and then I was also thinking, I can't remember what Thurman Munson, the game after the first game back from, when he died from the plane crash, how the opposite team, saluted the Yankees and Thurman, but there's always been that respect factor no matter what. I think in any decade. And that's what I like about it, where it's like, yeah, you got to show sportsmanship, even though you might not like the other side or anything like that. People know the limits of things. Then also I was thinking, Bryce Harper and Freddie Freeman, they're in the high rent district of, salaries. So the fraternizing and all that is always warranted whenever you talk about players now, because it's a fraternity. and it's more of a player's game now than an owner's or a fan's game, just because of how much a team how much a player makes, and those two are right up there. But yeah, that's one of those moments where you forget everything, and I just hope Max just comes back and he gets to live his life, even stronger after this. Chrissy Wilson, and she mentions a Cowboy, I think, offensive lineman in the comments. Yeah, Travis Frederick. Yeah, center. Sorry, number 72, I think it was. But he had to retire because of the syndrome. And I forgot all about that, to be honest with you. But it's just one of those things where you can't do anything. And that was the case with Travis there. So a good catch by Christy there, because I can't remember whom it was.
I also think about Patrick Eaves, longtime NHL player, had played with the Ottawa Senators in 2007, played a couple years with the Anaheim Ducks, but at the end of his career, though, he got slammed by GBS, and he would be, in and out of the lineup, hospital visits and stuff, and he actually played a few games down here in San Diego. And seeing him kind of getting back to full strength, though, after having GBS was really inspiring to see him fight it off and come back, full speed ahead. And again, we certainly agree with Christy Wilson. Hopefully that Max does feel better. But again, it's a very cool gesture by the Phillies, by the entire baseball world in general, fans voicing their support and hoping that Freddie Freeman's son, Max, will be back to full health very soon. With that, James, one more baseball topic, man. Very interesting news drop made earlier on Tuesday. We've had, James, games played overseas. Now, James, start your engines. The first ever Major League Baseball game is going to Bristol Motor Speedway in Tennessee in 2025, per unnamed sources at the Tennessean newspaper on Tuesday, who chose not to comment publicly due to remaining anonymous. The game will feature the Atlanta Braves and the Cincinnati Reds. Marcus Smith, the CEO of Speedway Motorsports, and MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred are set to formally announce the news on Friday at the track alongside NASCAR analyst and longtime racer Kevin Harvick, all set to be there as well. This also, by the way, would not or will not be the first sporting event not named NASCAR held at the Speedway. The Tennessee Volunteers football program played Va-Tech in a game that brought in over 156,990 fans to a college football game at Bristol Motor Speedway. So, James, we go from overseas games to the few years that the LA Dodgers played at the LA Memorial Coliseum. Now, James, start your engines for a game that will easily have over 200,000 people. But also, James, Major League Baseball game at a famed NASCAR racetrack in Nashville, Tennessee. Interesting to begin the expansion talks for Tennessee. And also, James, how about the fact, though, Atlanta Braves and the Reds? So you have a very somewhat right now beat-up Braves ball club, but a very intriguing Reds team with Ellie De La Cruz, who will probably win Rookie of the Year in the National League. But now, James, we go from overseas, my man, to Bristol Motor Speedway and the world of NASCAR colliding with Major League Baseball in 2025. James, what do you got, man? I think this is more about Tennessee baseball for MLB. Sign me up.
Huh? No, when I read this earlier, I was like, what? Two things. They're used to going straight and then turning left. Well, I'm thinking to myself, base runners do that too, unless they get caught up and have to go back.
Yeah, how fitting, too, that we have that going on as well.
And then I was also thinking, when will the game be? Because, the weather there is awful in the summer, and I'm reading that it may be August 1st, and that is the worst time of the year to have an event there. Just ask anybody who sits there. And then I was looking at the picture of the raceway, and you mentioned the Dodgers playing that exhibition game in 2008 against Boston at the Coliseum in LA. But they also
played the whole year, though, at the LA Coliseum, too, I think.
58, 59, 60, 61. before Dodger Stadium was built. And I just
had that
remember
loophole of like the 250-foot, left field line, but you had to hit it like 55 or 60 rows up over this giant net for it to be an actual homer or it'd be a ground rule double.
the Wally Moon shot, what they called it, whenever Wally would, pull one to left when he played with LA there. So I was looking at the raceway. At least it won't be. At least we'll have regular.
Dimensions.
Fences? We should have, regular dimensions. Thank you. That should be okay. It'll be kind of a throwback to when, football and baseball played together.
Multi-purpose
cookie
stadiums.
cutter, stadiums. So it's gonna kind of feel like that. But man, for those players, and and luckily they're not playing on asphalt, of course. But I'm always remembering the stories of the players back in the day that played on AstroTurf in the summer, and how it was easily 120, 130 on a hot summer day back in the 70s and 80s and 90s before everybody got grass in their own stadiums. And I was just thinking to myself, man, it's going to be horrible there for those players, but at least it's not a whole series. It's just one game. And then I notice how big the crowd is, or the stadium is, or the raceway is that you're going to have a lot of, empty seats to behind it or whatever. I'm wondering what they'll do with that. So yeah, it almost reminds me of when the Dodgers played at the Coliseum. Just the way it's just spread out that much. And then you mentioned where it is, and
Tennessee.
Maybe they're looking at Nashville and seeing how many people draw. And I'm thinking to myself, you can get Reds fans from,
Ohio
and Kentucky to come down, and then you get all of the South of
Georgia, Alabama,
fans.
Mississippi.
So it's an ideal location.
From the Carolinas.
That too. Oh, sure. Because there's rumors
kind of been in that conversation too for MLB expansion.
So you're going to have a good look at what a potential fan base could be in both Nashville and Charlotte, and both cities are kind of booming. A lot of New Yorkers have moved I've known a lot of Californians that have moved to Nashville, and a lot of New Yorkers who have moved down to Charlotte. So I think that'd be a big boost if they ever got MLB. But yeah, that day, if they have it August 1st, that would be really, really hot there. That's the only problem I have with it. But at least they're not on AstroTurf or asphalt.
Yeah, James, actually like this idea, not for the fact of like they're testing the expansion market, but I also like the ambition. Again, James, you recall back in March, I was a grouchy old man, after I had stayed up to watch the Padre-Dodger games in South Korea that counted in the standings. Like, I am not 4 games in March counting, like that when you go overseas. Like, I was all for Mexico City because at least you had games already under your belt. Not starting the season like that, though. Like, I'm not in favor of, like, opening the season. But if you have, like, 30, 40, 50 games underneath your belt, then, yeah, you go and play at the racetrack. But I wonder, though, James, if this begins to open up baseball's eyes to, like, maybe begin doing more of these one-off weird, games. Like, I mean, it may sound loony, but I think about how the NHL has grown their outdoor product when they have gone to college football stadiums. They've gone to the big NFL stadiums. They've done, they pulled off a game at Dodger Stadium between the Ducks and the Kings. We talked about on Sports Minute a while back. They had 3 separate games at MetLife Stadium that all drew 76, 78, 80,000 people. That every game kept one-upping each other. But now we're talking about a NASCAR racetrack that can hold like 150,000 people. James, what might be next, though, beyond a racetrack for a Major League Baseball game is at this rate? My goodness.
Okay. Alaska.
That'd be
in the
that'd
summer.
Be something.
You bring the Mariners and the Rockies, and you have them play up there.
Play a game at midnight up there.
And it's still sunny. I mean, that would be the time to do it, of course. Um, where else was I thinking? Oh, the foreheads of the presidents,
Mount
Mount
Rushmore,
Rushmore.
South Dakota.
Imagine that, Mount Rushmore there. Uh, Not really Niagara Falls. I don't think there's a place around there you can put a baseball field in. But yeah, just think of like the national landmarks, maybe the White House lawn
Oh, that'd be
or
something.
the Washington Monument or something like that, or the Lincoln Monument right there.
That'd be
They,
something.
there's It's good though because it's making MLB kind of cool. You know, like you mentioned, they see hockey playing at Lake
NFL
Tahoe.
stadiums. Yeah, Lake Tahoe. Yes, Lake
That was
Tahoe.
weird, but that was cool at the same time. It was at that time of whatever it was, like 2020 when they did that. Um, did they ever play in Lake Placid? Did they play a
Oh,
NHL
I
game
don't
there?
think so. I just had one pop into my head though, and I doubt this would ever happen. A baseball game after the Masters on a golf course. That'd be something.
That'd be really quiet. Um, but yeah, it's like all the possibilities because you've seen what they did this year. They had it at the Negro League Stadium. They had the two Field of Dreams games,
They've gone to London and played in soccer
and then
stadiums.
London and
They played in cricket grounds
Mexico,
in Australia.
Australia with the Dodgers and Diamondbacks in 2014. So
Dodgers Padres in Beijing in 2007, I believe.
yeah, or preseason '08, I think that was.
Yeah, oh
Anyway,
wait, yeah.
it's kind of endless, but you have to be smart about it, and you just have to put it on a Saturday, not on a Tuesday. That would be better if
Yeah,
you
it
had
needs
it.
to be like prime date, like the 4:15 p.m. Pacific Saturday slot on Fox.
I know when the Phillies and Mets played, that was like at. Well, I was going to work, but I think it was like at 1 o'clock or whatever it was, or
But it was
11
a Friday,
a.m.
Saturday, I think, though.
The Saturday was at
Yeah.
least, and that didn't really do well, I think, for me. But yeah, maybe I think what would be cool, but it would be risky if they had a game. You know, they've had it in Puerto Rico, of course, with the Expos in
Yep.
04 or 03, I should say, both years. But if somehow they went to the Dominican Republic, and if somehow Cuba opened up, I know it won't happen, but I think that would be eye-opening.
That'd be something.
Yeah, those would be the two because of how many great players came out of there. That would be something.
Plenty of thoughts. Christy Wilson first says, wow, with a shock face emoji. She also said, never thought I'd see the day that a MLB game would be at a racetrack, let alone Bristol in Tennessee. And she also says that hopefully this will be a cool experience for the players, without a doubt, for sure.
Some of them.
I honestly, James, the thing I think that Major League Baseball got right was the League Classic game in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. Cool that they open it up to just the Little League players and their coaches and the teams, and they get to sit and watch a full Major League Baseball game while those players come, I think, day of and day before to watch them play. Then they get to go watch the pros play after it's all said and done. Definitely a very cool experience. But again, folks, very interesting news once more. Major League Baseball set to play their first ever game at Bristol Motor Speedway coming in 2025. Again, it's not been officially set in stone yet, but per reports gathered earlier on Tuesday from Mike Organ of the Nashville, Tennessee newspaper, the official announcement will come on Friday between League Commissioner Rob Manfred, Speedway Motorsports CEO Marcus Smith, and NASCAR analyst Kevin Harvick will also be on display, or be available to the media, I should say, on Friday to officially confirm the Bristol Motor Speedway outdoor game coming to Major League Baseball in 2025 between the Braves and Reds. It will not, again, folks, be the first time that there is a major sporting event being held at the Bristol Motor Speedway. Back in 2016, Tennessee Volunteer Football played against Va Tech in a college football game at the 150,000 seat venue, where they announced attendance of over 156,990 fans, marking the largest ever confirmed attendance for a NCAA football game back in 2016. For those who do not know as well, but Bristol Motor Speedway also hosts 2 NASCAR Cup races every year. The Food City 500 on St. Patty's Day this past year, and the next race coming up is the Bass Pro Shops night race on September 21st. And of course, they'll have to be as always, they will have to again work around that schedule for the NASCAR coming up. And again, I know that we have some of us out here in SoCal know, but there has been some not controversy, but the closure of the Auto Club Speedway here in San Bernardino over the past few months, where they are right now trying to work on either a new track. There's been a lot of controversy surrounding that project, but very intrigued though to see what happens here, and also very intrigued to see what does come out at this rate of what we do know right now at this rate. But again, we will see what happens with the Major League Baseball in-season game being played in Tennessee, where I do believe that we begin to now kind of, again, folks, go down this rabbit hole about Major League Baseball expansion, as James and I talked about. James will be right back as well, in case your folks are wondering. But now this does begin to kind of, I think, open up that those talks again. Again, we really have talked a bit here and there about expansion for Major League Baseball. But I think a lot of it, though, folks, is like hanging fruit about what happens with the Athletics. Now, what I can confirm for you folks here, a little bit of like a press row segment here as we wait for James to hop back on here, is as of Tuesday, the Oakland Athletics announced their intentions to sell their half of the ownership of the Oakland Coliseum to, I think, kind of in a way, begin to end to start writing the last chapters of the Athletics in Oakland before the move does get made to Sacramento, California in 2025 for at least the next 3 seasons. We still, folks, don't know what will happen with Las Vegas at this rate, though. I mean, all signs are pointing towards yes, that will happen for the Athletics going to Vegas. But again, a lot of, again, politics are in place right now with what is going on with the budgeting, the money for public education, all the lawsuits right now that are being kind of in a way figured out in courts of law, and also the bigger question about whether or not John J. Fisher will actually have the money and be able to pony up the money for that move to Vegas coming up very, very soon at this point in time. But this, as James said, though, begins, though, to kind of make you wonder about where does the league go? Because do you go to 32 teams or do you go beyond 32 teams? And if you go beyond 30 teams, what do you do, though, with league alignment? As we kind of already have talked about a little bit on here, though, that this begins that chain reaction is that if Nashville comes off the board, then do we talk about Charlotte? Do we talk about Montreal again? Do we talk about Salt Lake City? As I've been kind of talking about here a little bit, when it's boiled down to where things stand with the Utah Hockey Club going to Salt Lake City from Arizona, is that response already has been over 34,000 season ticket deposits for a 10,000-seat arena that does have some Arizona Coyotes-esque style problems with, obstructed view seating and this and that and whatnot. But also Dale Murphy, former Braves legend, having his ownership group trying to, as we also know, bring that, or, their group trying to bring a franchise to Salt Lake City, where Salt Lake City now maybe leapfrogs Vegas as being the fastest growing sports market, with them already having the NBA there. Now they're adding the NHL there. They're going to have the Olympics there in 10 years, in 2034. They already have 2 soccer teams there. Now do they become a baseball market after years of being a AAA market for the Angels and other West Coast baseball clubs? But this, I think, though, is a very great starting point for baseball to, I think, kind of in a way expand their horizons. We always talk, folks, about how baseball has been sort of a dying breed in sports because of the pace of the game and this and that the younger demographics don't like the sport because, well, it's too slow. I'd rather watch something with the clock like football or basketball or hockey or soccer, because at least, at the game that there's always action. And that, maybe baseball has, killed their product with the pitch clock and you can't shift defensively, and so on and so forth, though. But this is something I think that what's been missing from Major League Baseball is just having an idea and now trying to, I think, keep your sport relevant with sports like the NFL, like the NBA, where again, you're kind of in a way thinking outside the box to bring more eyeballs to your sport. And plus, in a market like Tennessee, where they've had double A baseball, single A baseball, triple A baseball, but not the highest level of the sport, that now begins to bring people in who probably like the Tennessee Smokies or like the Nashville Sounds. Now they want to get, start, supporting their own franchise in Major League Baseball, where again, they may have been Braves fans, as James said, where now you can probably in a way take the Sun Belt, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, all that being Braves territory. Like I said, though, too, kind of up the coast, though, too, to the Carolinas. Then you talk about bringing people from Ohio and Kentucky who might be Reds fans into neutral ground to get this experience. As Christy said, it might be good one, it'll be good, in her mind for the players. I think, Christy, it's also a win-win experience for the city, the Speedway, but also for the group, though, who wants to bring Major League Baseball to Nashville. Now, whether that may be, as James has brought up, though, about maybe the White Sox were to move, or maybe, what happens with the Athletics. I think that becomes, like I said, though, that's kind of hanging fruit right now, dangling over everyone's head about if Vegas does fail, where do the A's go? Part of me does think, though, if this whole thing in Sacramento works out, that becomes your new home for the Athletics. It's now that would be a big can of worms, though. Like, well, wait a second. You're playing in the AAA ballpark for the San Francisco Giants, your main interleague rival. Why all of a sudden does this become a market now for Major League Baseball? Well, again, it's because it would be a growing market. You have the Sacramento Kings who've been there for a long time. Yeah, you have history already as is with the River Cats. But then I think, though, that becomes where you want the Major League product to come your way. But again, I think, though, from a front office perspective, this is a major win for Major League Baseball. We're going outside the box. Forget overseas play. We're going to go to a NASCAR speedway, bring 150,000 plus people to this game, one-off game. But again, let's see, though, where Nashville and where Tennessee baseball fans really are. And I think that, again, the history of the minor league product being there, but also Tennessee baseball winning the College World Series this year, that does have some weight, though, I would say, at this time as we move forward for sure, as we do prolong at this time. But again, once more, MLB, as of Tuesday and soon to be confirmed on Friday, will be heading to Bristol Motor Speedway in Tennessee for a one-off game between the Braves and Reds from Bristol Motor Speedway in over in the great state of Tennessee. With that, folks, in mind, I want to switch gears over to the NFL again. James had to step out for a minute, so he'll be back here in just a few moments. So if again, folks, if you're joining us here again, fire away with some commentary. We'll make sure that is read live on the air. With that, folks, we'll switch gears to the NFL, and we're going to try our best to cover this whole entire ordeal, folks, with Brandon Ayuk, a developing story that broke just before we came on the air on Tuesday. But per ESPN's Adam Schefter, after they had inquired about Brandon Ayuk's availability, the Patriots have chosen not to explore any further trade possibilities with the Niners regarding wide receiver Brandon Ayuk, per Adam Schefter on Tuesday. The Pats were one of three teams in on Ayuk that had a contract framework in discussions, along with both the Browns and the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pats have tried to nab Ayuk for several months, and it had been a slow process for them, according to unnamed sources. The Pats was willing to trade or make Ayuk one of the top 5 highest-paid wideouts in the NFL in terms of average salary per year, per the same source. Folks, wonder what's going on here as we do, in fact, folks, bring James back. James had to step aside here for a second, but with that in mind, though, James, Interesting development, my man. As we said, though, Brandon Ayuk, again, kind of in a way, almost like Garrett Crochet, I'd say, like James, hurting his own trade stock maybe in a way. But now, James, one team comes off the board now due to the Patriots saying, yeah, we're interested, but per what the reports gathered from Adam Schefter, they want just their young guys to develop at wide receiver. So that now leaves Pittsburgh and Cleveland as the two hot commodities now for Brandon Ayuk. James, how do you see this whole thing playing out? And what do you make about the Patriots saying, yeah, but no thanks?
It just shows me what their plan is, where they're just trying to build from within and just play who they have. Although Juju Smith-Schuster is just awful. I know he's a Trojan, but that was a horrible signing by them. They don't have their quarterbacks correct right now. They're going to have an interesting preseason just trying to figure out who's going to start. But, man, I think I had Pittsburgh all the way through. I feel like they're missing that one deep threat, and I think that could really help them. With the Browns, it's cool that they're in this, but to me, I feel like they can't, take on another contract with an extension. Yeah, no way. They paid all that guaranteed money for Watson, who had to use it on other things. And then you still have Amari Cooper you're paying, and Nick Chubb, and Myles Garrett, who just got re-upped a few years ago, I believe. So they're in cap hell, so I don't think that's going to happen. But remember, just like you mentioned with Garrett Crochet, if you trade for me, you have to extend me. In the NFL, I know you get away with that, but you have to throw in that guaranteed money, and that's always a turnoff. But I think the Steelers are that desperate to prove that, hey, we got Russell Wilson, and Justin Fields is looking good as well, just in case. And we really want to try to air the ball out, even though we have two solid running backs with Warren and Harris. But adding Ayuk could be a factor that's like, hey, we can strike at Baltimore. We can strike at Cincinnati, and then we can be better than Cleveland for sure. But I still say the Steelers. I think all in all, I knew that they were the one team. I'm hoping not the Commanders, just because him and Daniels are, friends, and they played at ASU. That doesn't mean you're going to have success in the big league.
Precisely.
On Sundays or whatever. But yeah, I as I thought, I would think the Steelers want to make that big move because they're not known to do that. But to make them really relevant again, I think they're going to make that happen.
James, I mainly wonder this from the San Francisco perspective, more than I would say for Cleveland or New England or even Pittsburgh. The main logic I'm not getting from John Lynch and from San Francisco is you literally just went to the Super Bowl. You again implode against KC at the worst possible time. How in the world can he not decide to run it back with the group that you've got? Now, whether or not Ayuk is disgruntled, but I would just think, though, you would want to keep that group together for like one more last-ditch effort to get back to the Super Bowl. But I know that you would have to, you'd have to pay Purdy and Debo and all those guys. I just don't think the mentality is in a good place, though, to be shopping a top wide receiver that I know he's got, he's had like some, injury history maybe, but then again, who doesn't? I just think I don't quite understand it from that perspective. I think I agree with you more about Cleveland. You really can't afford to take on another big, hefty, guaranteed contract. And that Pittsburgh, I think, wants to get back to where they once were at one point, and that's on top of the AFC North division.
Okay, here's what I think about with the 49ers. Okay, and John Lynch. Remember, I think it was last week, Ayuk walked on the field and then walked off of it with John Lynch. He was told not to practice.
Right. The hold-in process.
That whole thing, which is still weird to me.
Yeah, we have hold-outs, now we have hold-ins now. Like, which one is it, fellas? Figure it out.
Well, the good thing is, I think the Players Association got rid of the holdouts. They said, "Hey, be more professional. We're going to have you in instead of out. It's going to look better and might end up better for you, the players."
For sure.
So that happened, and I thought, okay, they're going to work on a new deal, and if they can't get it, they'll find a suitor for him, and that's what has happened. I do remember John Lynch, and I believed him where they said he's going to be here for this season. I have no, doubt in my mind. We want him to be here for this season. They were never gonna extend him, and with Deebo Samuel, they already extended him, but there were talks that he was unhappy, that he would be out soon. And you mentioned the one last ride mentality, because eventually you'll have to pay Purdy. You're ready, read up CMC. And then just as the Ayuk story happened, the same day or the next day, Trent Williams, the best left tackle in pro football, all of a sudden, hey, I want more money. I'm older. I'm 36, and I feel like I'm underpaid, even though they just re-upped him for 3 years, $72 million. So the worst time for that to happen, to get the agents involved, I mean, the 49ers are just dealing with a lot, the pressure to get back, and this time, open the door and win the Super Bowl. It's just a lot of pressure on John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan not to fail again. And this Ayuk thing, it just feels like a problem you just now need to get out of the door instead of welcoming back in. You just got to get him out the door and get whatever you can for him. Maybe a third rounder at best. That would probably be the case. But, I guess they feel like they have enough to, where Brock Purdy doesn't have to do much. He could throw to the flat or throw a screen pass to one of his many running backs. And then they have the receivers. They have Kittle, which I don't think use enough for catches. Their defense also took a lot of hits. They just got younger at defense. And that was something they had to do. So, yeah, again, I think it was just that situation with the Niners where it felt like, okay, whatever Ayuk, if he doesn't want to be here, let's just get rid of him. And it just felt like, again, it was a hold-in, but it felt like they're going to get rid of him and they're going to go wherever they trade him to. And now at least they give him that suitor choice in a way. And again, I think he goes to Pittsburgh with that. But, man, again, a lot of pressure on the Niners to get it right for at least 1 year and win it all.
Yeah, I think there's more pressure on San Francisco. I think they still win the NFC West division, depending on how the Rams do, what Seattle does, and whatever else Arizona does. Coming up in 2024, minus the cotton candy burrito they're going to be selling at State Farm Stadium now to lure fans in. Coming up this year at the concession stands. But I think that definitely, James, and again, I don't understand a lick of American football, but I would think, though, that for a team, though, who went all the way to the title game last year, you would want to run things back with that same group. But yet here we are, though, talking about, San Francisco being stuck in a holdout right now with Brandon Ayuk. And today, as of Tuesday, the Pats off the board. Cleveland and Pittsburgh remain the top two suitors now for Brandon Ayuk from San Francisco. With that, James, staying over in the NFL, it is a full-fledged war in training camps for roster spots, and more brawls are breaking out, James, between these very, I think, stupid joint practices between teams. And for the second day in a row, James, Malik Neighbors, first-round pick for the Giants, is at the forefront of a second altercation between the Giants and Detroit Lions involving two practices of joint practices and two multiple occasion scuffles breaking out during the course of the week and day that prolonged, which James brings me to my question. James, good or bad joint practices for the NFL during training camps where you see a lot of this crap happen between teams for literally no reason?
Well, it is a good thing and a bad thing, right? So you're ready in training camp. You've been to OTAs. You're sick of, pushing your teammates around and then practicing against them. You're sick of, looking at the same people. You want to go at opponents. And that's what this brings out. But then it brings out, and it always seems to be, it's either two sets of position players that go, so to speak. It's the offensive linemen and defensive linemen who get, tangled up and held and push, and that starts a thing. And it always seems to be a receiver that becomes a diva. Neighbors might be that for the Giants, but he pissed off some Lions yesterday. And I think what he did, the video I saw today, was like after a play happened, he was running back, and he kind of like had a cheap shot to the back of somebody's head or something to the line corner, and that started off something. The day before, I saw them get together again, where Daniel Jones even got in there and shoved a Lion. And of course, I was listening to the Jim Rome show and Pat McAfee show, and they were talking about, well, hey, if someone puts their hands on Daniel Jones, a red jersey, that's going to be more of a problem. So why is Daniel Jones even in there? Is this the most fight the Giants will show all year long? Is what we've seen the last 2 days against the Lions. So yeah, it's a mentality, and it's been here for years. I mean, whoever the Cowboys would come practice against out here in California, it was always a thing. They would always get into massive brawls because they're sick of hitting themselves. They want to go out and hit someone else where they know it's legal, or where they know it's good for themselves for the regular season. So it's just bound to happen, and I'm kind of surprised it doesn't happen more. But I think with more cameras and more phone cameras, you're going to see more footage of more of these things happening. Now the teams are getting together for preseason games. And so you'll have 3 weeks of this. The Bears and Texans will have 4 weeks of, preseason games. So, yeah, we'll see some more of this just because they get the players get the urge to hit others instead of themselves.
Yeah, James. I mean, I get the perspective of the joint practices. Again, you probably get, tired of beating up your teammates, and, they get tired of it and stuff like that. I mean, if you need to, ask anybody about beating up your teammates, talk to the 85 Bears. I mean, go watch that documentary on ESPN Plus where literally it was an all-out war every practice between Mike Ditka's offense and Buddy Ryan's defense, and they kept clashing each other every practice day back in 85. However, though, James, I agree, though, with what he said, though, about, like, the Giants starting the whole thing. Let's not forget, James, Daniel Jones began the whole entire fracas on Monday. Now we have a rookie first-round pick starting it on Tuesday, where the report here from, I believe, Jordan Raanan, the writer for ESPN.com, says that Neighbors caught 17 of 18 passes and then began to mouth off and began swinging at Detroit Lions safety Kirby Joseph late in the practice on Tuesday. And per Dan Campbell, who called it a spirited practice, James, there was 7 other incidents that broke out in this over the course of this practice between these two teams. Now, just think, though, James, in 2 days, they play each other in the first game of the preseason. Like, I get, James, that whole thing, but I don't think but I just personally, and again, I don't know crap about the NFL and American football, so maybe this is just me being soft. But could you imagine, other than like spring training or NHL preseason games, like a team actually having a joint practice in baseball with like Dodgers, Angels, just imagine that, for example, other than, games are being one thing. But I do notice here, though, James, that today on Tuesday, the hot shot rookie starts everything after dropping one pass today, and then it becomes a full-fledged melee. But then, though, again, you have 7 other scuffles break out. James, I guess I start getting worried about guys getting actually injured in a meaningless joint practice where, again, the opposition takes out one of my best players during the course of the preseason. That's more, I think, of why I don't like him, is that what if my quarterback is injured because someone, recklessly, intentionally or not, sacks him inadvertently and does not, whatever. But what if I lose my number one pick or my first round pick, or if I lose my star wide receiver or running back because they blew out their knee in a joint practice with the opposing team, or in the middle of a fray like a brawl breaking out where the bench is empty in football?
Yeah, the injuries are the worst part because it could have been avoided, or at least they were meant to be if you're cutting on the field and you slip or whatever. But the part about Neighbors, the rookie, eventually he'll be humbled. He'll have a bad practice day, or he'll have a bad game, and somebody will mention to him, you're talking that mess, and guess what happened? And maybe on Saturday or whenever they play the Lions, he'll have a bad game, and then he'll be humbled. And then I think about it, the Giants have a lot of young players. The Lions have Dan Campbell, which I think his philosophy is controlled chaos. And yeah, kneecaps and biting people and real lines in the locker room, all that crap. It's just mentalities that are just ruthless, I think, sometimes. And the younger players will have to get control of their emotions, especially in that game, because their jobs are at stake, their reps are at stake, and if you get thrown out for getting into a little fracas, that's going to look bad on your resume, and you might be asked to turn your playbook. So yeah, you just got to control your emotions in that. I know it's very, very tough, but it's very tough in the NFL because, again, you're sick of hitting yourself. You want to hit someone. And, again, that's the problem for all 32 teams right now. You're just trying to get through training camp, not hurt or not without repercussions that hurt the team.
I just think back to that 85 Bears team. I mean, it was their own grudge match every practice day. In 85. With that in mind, James, will go from the NFL to the ongoing media issues in the NBA, but Sir Charles intends to come back to TNT for one more season and through the remainder of his contract. The former Phoenix Suns great announced on Tuesday that he will not retire, reversing his decision he made back in June at the start of the NBA Finals. Barkley did tell ESPN sources that at the time that the 2024-25 campaign would be his last on TV, no matter what eventually happened with the NBA's media deal negotiations. He signed a 10-year contract back with TNT back in 2022. As of Tuesday, WBD or Warner Brothers Discovery has sued the NBA in New York State court after the NBA did not accept the company's matching offer for one of the packages in its new 11-year media right deals, which begin with the 2025-26 season with ESPN, ABC, and NBC and Amazon Prime Video. We're expected to try to court Charles Barkley before his announcement on Tuesday. Inside the NBA, host Ernie Johnson also says that he intends to remain with TNT, but the futures of both Shaq and Kenny Smith remain uncertain at this time. Barkley joined TNT back in 2000 and has been a part of Inside the NBA, which has won 21 Emmys, has been a model for all studio programs. He also himself has won 5 sports Emmys for outstanding studio analysts as well. He won that back in May. So, James, this will be something that does drag out for a while. I'll have hopefully more about this on Thursday on Press Row. I should say on Friday, I'll be off on Thursday as I get my new season started. But, James, this is going to be a very interesting story to watch, though, my man, because of what will, in fact, happen again. I literally said, James, on Press Row last Thursday, though, this is like the one time I have been very upset with the NBA and in that leadership group with Adam Silver. I might be the lone guy on this network who actually likes and loves and appreciates Adam Silver. But, again, you don't, as a league entity or as a partner in business, you don't turn your back on somebody who's been a loyal to the soil partner for your league for 34 seasons and treat them like dirt to go to that shiny new object that is Amazon Prime Video or a streaming-only platform. And, the malarkey I heard was that, there was a little loophole written in the contract saying, oh, you can't match Amazon because that's a separate thing from over-the-air cable. Mm-hmm. You could only match ABC or NBC. But he couldn't match Amazon Prime Video. So, again, I think that this is going to be in court, James, for the next couple of months. hopefully resolved by the time of the NBA season does begin in late October. But James, thoughts about Sir Charles going back, and again, the future of TNT with the NBA still up in the balance as we speak here on Tuesday night.
Yeah, one thing about the loophole in that lawsuit or whatever, that it has to be a streaming service, and TNT isn't. It's strictly a cable network. They do stream, but so I don't think they're going to win that lawsuit just based off of that, because it has to be a streaming service who takes over. And that's one thing Charles Barkley mentioned. And I think he was at a golf event, of course. But he mentioned to someone asking a question about the new move after next season, in which, the games will be on streaming. And I think he hit what everybody thinks, where not everybody can afford streaming, and the fans are really being screwed from this, that just want to see the games on, cable and local TV. And, there's been plenty of things Adam Silver has gone wrong, and this is probably the one for me that kills my favorite TV show of all time, is Inside the NBA, or at least sports-wise. It's the best ever for me, and knowing that after next season it'll be gone, I'll be sad as hell, and I won't look at the NBA the same. Last year I think was the first time in a while where I just watched a lot of the TNT coverage in the regular season, and of course in the playoffs, and I muted everybody else pretty much because I didn't want to hear them. So I guess I'm going to be muting everything in 25-26 beyond. So I'm distraught, and I think Charles just hit it on the head where he mentioned that the players are getting paid too much, and the owners are getting paid too much, and the fans are getting screwed from this deal. And Adam Silver's to blame for it, no doubt. They're all loyal to TNT, but and there's been so many years where Charles threatened to retire, like, oh, maybe in a couple years I'll retire. That's why they gave him that 10-year deal. And of course, Ernie's too loyal to TNT. That's where he got his start in '89 after doing local television in Atlanta and somewhere else. So just the thing about it being gone, it hurts. And even now, where you still have one more year left, but the end is near, it's going to hurt. And then I was thinking about this. Turner had the NBA, I believe, since 84, 85, I think they started from the first, I think USA Network, ESPN had, some cable games during the week or a weekend game randomly in the regular season. But TBS had like the first Tuesday night where they marketed it all over the place. Then they had Thursday night. Then they had all three games, or Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays. I remember in the 90s. And it was a huge thing because you get to see, Jordan, Shaq, all the big names. And I feel the league now is so just played out. It's like the league has stars, but the game has suffered because everybody does the same thing, or they play the same way. You don't have the same personalities. Everybody gets paid too much. So the league is going to really suffer from this. And I think Charles is right. I think he'll actually retire. I don't think he'll go to ESPN because he hates a lot of people from there, in the past and present people there. It would be irony, too, because of all the times he made fun of ESPN and their personalities. If he gave him, if he got a big offer from them and he took it, I'd be highly.
NBC?
I wouldn't mind NBC. And the funny thing is, that's who offered him the first, his first contract was NBC back in, 2000, before the 2000 season. But, he had to talk with the TNT brass, and, that's where he's been ever since. But I think it was on the Inside Story, that documentary, where I first learned about Charles. NBC was right for him, but they were losing their rights to ABC and ESPN. So he didn't want to be on a short-term contract. He wanted to be on a long one, and he figured cable was going to be around for a while. It seems now streaming has taken over cable and all that, but I don't think Charles will go with the trend, but he might. I believe Shaq and Kenny will probably end up somewhere else or just doing their own thing. But yeah, I'm just disappointed, and definitely I'm going to come home on Thursdays and tune in and enjoy the playoffs one last time on TNT.
Yeah, I think, James, that you're right. That I don't really kick sand at Adam Silver, but I did last Thursday because it was what Chuck had said, though, about how the fans are the losers in this situation, not the owners, not the 30 clubs, not the league front office. The common man like you and me is getting screwed here because of that shiny new object for the NBA called a streaming platform like Amazon Prime Video, where I again said I would love to see that show move over to NBC and call it NBA Showtime, like the video game I
Would
used to play
love
all the
that.
time at the Family Fun Center in Claremont here in San Diego, and I would always lose every game, but still, like, I'd bring back NBA Showtime on NBC and make it what Inside the NBA was to Turner, bring that back to NBC as NBA Showtime. But again, like I said, though, you just don't turn your back on a media company who's been by your side for 3+ decades just because of where we are with cost cutting measures. And I think, James, that once the NBA leaves TNT, and I hate to say it again, as I said last Thursday, but TNT can't recoup those losses from just covering the NHL, college basketball, March Madness, Tuesday Night
Golf.
Baseball on TNT, golf, Big East basketball, and re-showing Marvel and Star Wars films. You're not going to make up that lost revenue over. It may take them like a decade to recoup those losses after 2025.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to. Or not looking forward to, but just seeing how TNT goes after that, because we all look at the the guide before TNT has coverage, or at least I do, especially in the playoffs, because the weekends have different times because the games are all on different networks on the weekend. So usually TNT will either have a morning game for us out here or a later game and then have inside for the playoffs. But in between, when they don't have NBA coverage, it's a 3-hour movie here, it's a 3-hour movie there, it's a 2-hour movie here, probably a Shaq show. And then finally you get to the NBA coverage, and just thinking, wow, they're just going to turn into MTV, where they used to have their original programming and then music videos, and now you're just
Rob
movies
Dyrdek
that
every half an hour.
that, and then movies everybody has seen at least 10 times.
Oh, yeah.
On MTV and MTV2. That's what I feel like TNT is going to turn into when you talk about that.
And again, that's just the last thing you want to see happen, with Turner and with TNT mainly. Again, I know that TBS will have the baseball playoffs, one round of the baseball playoffs. They'll have hockey action again. They might get the cup final for the NHL next season again.
Wow.
I think they might be alternating like they do with the Super Bowl every year. But again, it's going to take a long time for Turner to recoup the losses. But again, Charles Barkley back for one more get go with TNT in 2024-25 after mulling his after potentially retiring just 2 months ago. With that, James, over to the Paris games as we come down the home stretch, my man, of the final week of full coverage for the summer games over in Paris, France. Big story of the day, though, James. Gabby Thomas, not really well-known USA track and field runner, James, inspired by Allison Felix, gold medal winner today in the women's event here on this Tuesday. Of course, over in men's basketball, Team USA thumping Brazil 122-87 in the quarterfinal round on Tuesday. USA Women's Soccer won an extra time over Germany 1-0 thanks to a game-winning goal by Sophia Smith. Between Sophia Smith, Trinity Rodman, and Mal Swanson, they have been the three-headed monster for Team USA Women's Soccer. They will play Brazil, who knocked out the reigning Women's World Cup champion Spain 4-2 in the gold medal contest all the way out on Saturday. Team USA Women's Basketball is back in action with their 58-game winning streak against a very surprising team, James. Nigeria bumped out some great talent in their own run to the quarterfinals. They'll take on Team USA at 12:30 on Wednesday afternoon from Paris. Also, James, plenty more gold medals. Simone Biles continued to dominate and finishes off her games with 7 medals in her possession in gymnastics. USA women's 3-on-3 basketball recovered from a dismal start to win the bronze medal over in Paris as well. And more importantly as well, James, Team USA indoor women's volleyball also won a 3-0 sweep over Poland to move on as well to the next round for indoor volleyball. And of course, James, as well, that man Noah Lyles winning his event as well. And again, had a lot of those NBA fans ready to jump down his throat for his full champions commentary. But James, what have you liked after almost a full week, if not longer, of Olympic coverage over in Paris?
Oh, one more note about the TNT thing. Charles did also mention if he goes to another network, Kenny and Shaq are going to be coming for me. So we'll see how that goes again. But yeah, talking about the Olympics, I kept hearing about Noah Lyles, and Jim Rome was talking about it on a loop, it seemed like every hour. You know, how great he was, but he still gained the hate from all the NBA fans and players.
They were like, yes, come on, please lose. All part of the master plan.
And that one, was it the 400 where it came down to somebody's torso? I think it was Lyles' torso.
It was either the 200 or the 400, but it was, I mean, they were all photo finishes. Like it was literally bang, bang, bang.
Well, it was weird though. I seen like 3 other feet that were ahead of Lyles, but they said it has to be the torso that finishes.
Hence why all of the track and field spinners always like duck and cover when they get across the finish line.
And that was just a dramatic ending there, where everybody was watching the replay up on the scoreboard.
Gotta love it.
You know, the 2 closest guys, Jamaica and the Jamaican and Lyles, were talking to each other like, oh, did you get it? Did I get it? And they kept looking at the scoreboard for the results, and that was pretty fun. That reminded me of the times when I would watch Michael Johnson back in the day, 96.
Ooh, there's a name for you, folks. 2000.
And then there was one other guy. He kind of looked like Roy Jones Jr., but he was also a sprinter back in the day.
Carl Lewis?
No, in like the year 2000, I think.
Oh,
it was always Michael Johnson and this other guy, and those 2 were great. You know, then you had Usain Bolt, and you were hoping that the USA could get back to, you know, being on top, and they just did in that one event. That was very cool to see. I also was reading locally. I'm trying to remember her name, but there was a woman from Orange County that won surfing in Tahiti at the Olympics. I didn't even know that.
Caroline Marks comes to mind, but I think
it was her.
Yeah, it was her. Okay.
It was on Monday where she won the gold medal there in Tahiti, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, they have a thing in Tahiti? They have events there. There was a in basketball. The women still have their winning streak going. I think it's at 58
50 straight wins.
50. Okay. I think
50
they're going to run
consecutive games.
They're going to run through that, no problem. USA, like I mentioned last week, they're going to easily win that. I did see that France did beat Canada, so maybe it'd be USA first game against one another. Or no, I'm sorry. It was Wemby playing, I think, Serbia, and it was just all Wemby. But I think Team USA has enough to do it. I am kind of disappointed in a couple of things. Joel Embiid keeps getting booed by the French there, at the arena because
born in French Cameroon, and he's been getting booed since tip off of game 1 of the Olympics.
Every time he comes out, every time he touches the ball, it's kind of weird to see.
Every time he misses a shot, though, hey!
Yeah. So you get that kind of thing, and it reminds me of like Becky Hammond playing for, I forget what country, but not playing for the USA.
Oh,
I think it was in 08.
He played for Russia, I think.
Yeah, I think it was Russia. And then Chris came in playing for Germany instead of Team USA, I think in 2012 or 2008, whenever it was. But it's rare you have these, incidents where you have the player playing for their country or who they are basically, or just playing for the U.S. because it's easier. Like Hakeem Olajuwon in '96 played for the Team USA, so that was kind of awkward, but he was good in there. And then the men's 3v3, 3x3.
Ooh,
what
geez,
the
Louise.
hell? Where are we getting?
See you later.
Jimmer Fredette. I haven't heard that name in years. He's been playing overseas. I was watching some of these highlights. Well, lowlights, I want to say, but it's like, man, I'd rather have you get it. Like, they have what, 5 guys on their roster? I'd rather get the 5 best from the Ice Cube Big 3 league and replace them with those plumbers or those Saturday morning ballers that play on the 3 right now, and they would win. The Big 3 guys would win. The crazy thing about that Big 3, and I was watching the women play too, and one game, I forget whom it was, but it came down to a last shot in extra time. But it's continuous action, right? Yeah. There's no takeout. There's just, hey, clear the ball, and then we're going.
It's either 21 points or if the clock runs out for the game.
So I've been enjoying whatever I could watch about the NBA or it feels like the NBA with all the players staying outside of the Olympic Village because they're multimillionaires. But then you have the regular Olympic people staying in the village, sleeping on cardboard beds and little hotel rooms or whatever. And those guys are at like the best, French Four Seasons places you could think of. Can you say privilege? And then Katie Ledecky. Kayla Ledecky, she's doing like Mark Spitz and Michael Phelps kind of things. And then she's rooting on the men I saw, which was great too.
By the way, how about Anthony Edwards supporting the USA table tennis team and him just being in utter awe watching table tennis? That was cool to see too.
He's an adventurous person, and you could just tell he's enjoying his time. Him and KD now have a relationship because of not only the playoff series they had, last season, but I think before they probably ran some games, in a gym or something.
Oh, without a doubt.
So they're learning or Anthony Edwards is learning from everybody else. And I know at the beginning when they were having the pre-Olympic games or whatever they were called.
Showcase, yeah.
Or showcase, yeah, thank you. Somebody asked Anthony, hey, are you going to try to take the reins and be the leader of this group? He's like, no, I'm too young for that. I'm going to let the big dogs do that. My time will come, maybe in 28 or 32, whatever. But I'm learning from, Braun. I'm learning from KD. I'm learning from whomever else is the older statesman of the team. So it's cool to see someone as young as Edwards know his place and, not treat this like you're on an NBA team. I think Steve Kerr mentioned that, where it's different in the Olympics. There's no contracts. There's no trade requests. There's no coaches getting fired. You can get benched if you're not, playing the way we should be playing. And it's just different at the Olympics than it is the NBA, despite having, what did you mention? There were 61 NBA players in the Olympics, I think you mentioned
as
last
of this
week.
year, 61 players.
So more and more, you're getting those professional guys. And one more thing. I saw USA beat Brazil pretty handily, and Brazil had that one player, Feliciano. I remember him with the Bulls, but that was pretty much what Brazil had in NBA talent going at all these NBA players. And as you saw today, no chance. It was like 114-87, I want to say. But USA, I think, with 86 gold medals at this time, or 87 and
86 total
86.
medals.
And that total will change, of course, overnight. But I know China's right there, Australia, but they're nowhere near the USA right now. So even with a week to go, USA has it all.
And I also love that Australia tried to troll Team USA swimming by mocking the team for, the cowbell and their pre-swim rituals. And they said like how much like horror that hearing the American national anthem brings them during swimming. Suck it up, suck it up there, folks. Team USA dominated Australia again in the pool once more with a few more medals to their account, though. But I think, James, these games have been great. I mean, across the board, they've been very entertaining. I also think, James, just, historic, I think more about, I think that the main thing that's caught my attention has been about this USA women's gymnastics team. Like, this is like another redeemed team, kind of in a way, here in 2024, with how dismal that they were in 2021 and how they had to, endure the slander and criticism from former teammates of them, though, as well as, again, that's been in the news, though, too. And also, again, about how we talked last Tuesday about how Simone Biles had been battling a lot of internal depression and the twisties and the inner demons about not living up to expectations. Suni Lee battling her kidney illness from earlier this year. Again, how that team rallied around one another and how they went up there and just crushed the competition. Of course, we know that Rebecca Andrade had won gold in the final gymnastics event of the year of the games, though. But that Biles had won gold in events. Suni Lee had great finishes. Jade Carey was a big component. But James, how that team rallied around each other, but also how Simone Biles has now become the face of American gymnastics, other than, some of the greats like Mary Lou Retton, for example, or Carrie Sturg, who I think won the gold for the team in '96 on the broken ankle in Atlanta that year. But that, Simone has become not just, James, the poster child of gymnastics, but I think has become the torchbearer and the champion about speaking up about your mental health if you're not feeling your best, though. And that's been the biggest story, I think, that I can take away from not just her success in these games, but about the calls to address your mental health, though, during these games in 2024.
I'm going to sound like John Riley now and you be Hacksaw. I'm going to ask you a question. And was it China who defeated the U.S. in gymnastics in 21, or was it Japan that took over?
I think it was China. Might be
wrong. Yeah. Well, it's good whenever, like I said, whenever the U.S. can get back the gold medal, get back that form that they had. And to mention Simone Biles, she'll be here in my city. Yes. I live in September. I forget what day, but she'll be here doing a tour of gymnastics. And already there's a plethora of people that want tickets and asking about it. So, yeah, she's a figure, no doubt about it. And the Olympics only spring you and flip you to stardom even more. And then you mentioned Carrie Strug. All I could think about was SNL after that when they came back from the Olympics. And Will Ferrell's the coach, and I think it was Sherry O'Terry being carried by, Will Ferrell and all that. So I keep thinking about that. Yeah, it's a good sight to see, and I'm going to hopefully pay attention to more of the Olympics once I get home tomorrow from work. But I feel like I missed a lot, but I get the coverage from you and other people, so I feel good about that.
Yeah, and we can't forget Mary Lou Retton, who I think also won America's heart over 40 years ago in the LA
Oof.
Games in 1984. Shutting out our good man, Jack Braun, joining us late in the program here this evening on still a scorching hot Tuesday here in Southern California. James, one last Olympic talking point before we go off the board. Interesting perspective from former American male swimming great, now turned NBC analyst Michael Phelps throws down the gauntlet and has now been voicing his support for tougher sanctions when it comes to athletes in the Olympics who test positive for banned substances. Phelps maintained his stance on Monday at the Paris Games in 2024 amid an ongoing doping scandal that has seen numerous Chinese swimmers testing positive for banned substances, but still got the medals in the 2021 Tokyo Olympic Games. Phelps, who has won 28 medals in his entire career, told the AP on Monday that athletes who test positive for banned substances should be banned from competition for life after one failed test, not two,
Ooh.
not three. And Phelps said, in short, if you test positive, you should never be allowed to compete and compete again. Cut and dry. I believe one and done. That, of course, came or his stance comes after 23 Chinese swimmers had tested positive for banned substances ahead of the 2021 Games in Tokyo, Japan, but were still able to compete and win medals at the event. The news of the positive test came in April of 2024 following an investigation by the New York Times, which led the World Anti-Doping Agency and World Aquatics to have since acknowledged and have officially stripped those medals from the Chinese swimmers. So, James, we have arguably the biggest male swimmer now being threatened by Katie Ledecky for greatest American swimmer of all time. But I think, though, James, Michael Phelps, now, again, he's not immune, though, James, to his own scrutiny, though, from what happened with his own issues that happened, in 2012 or 2016 with him smoking the weed out of the bong and it went viral and he kind of got it in his own hot water. But I think, though, James, that there's not a proper way to weed out those who try to get the edge, though, especially on the global stage of the Olympics. Again, I recall talking about how in Russia in 2018, I think, or when they had the Olympics, though, that they were literally taking the tainted samples of their athletes. They cut a hole in the wall to the lab, pulled out the tainted samples and put clean ones in, knowing damn well that they would probably not get caught. But I think, though, James, I don't know what really we could do here. I think Mike's onto a great point, but still I think there's a bit of a loophole because I think that China will always try to cheat, as
Mhm.
will Russia, and there's no way to really, I think, weed out this sort of stuff from international competition. You can sanction and ban the Russian athletes what they've done to what they did with the Ukrainian war, and Belarus has been banned. They can be under the neutral flag and stuff like that. But again, James, you can't fully eradicate this behavior from certain countries in the Olympic Games. But James, your thoughts though about Michael Phelps saying, "Hey, one strike and you're out of the games if you test positive for a foreign substance"?
Two things. Can we ban the 3v3 American team to ever play again? Um,
On
and then
which side though? The men's side or the women's side?
the men's side, only the men's side. um, and then you mentioned weed and bong, and Snoop Dogg is everywhere on the Olympics coverage. It's ridiculous. It's amazing to see him and Martha Stewart and even Flavor Flav all over the Olympics, and for them
Flava Flav has been like the main sponsor of funding for the USA women's water polo team. I think no one knows that story, but Maggie
I didn't know
Steffens,
that.
who was the team captain of the women's water polo team, her and her teammates were sharing stories about them trying to qualify for the Olympics. But oh, by the way, we're working multiple jobs. We are college students. We have no money to pay our rent, pay rent. And Flava Flav said, as a girl dad, I'm going to get behind you and sponsor you guys and give you the money that you deserve to play your sport and not have to worry about rent and food and gas and childcare and education. I absolutely love the fact that he actually did that, and I think that's very cool to see.
Wow,
James, continue.
that's just amazing. I never heard of that, but wow, I guess he isn't that broke. as I thought. But yeah, there's always going to be cheating. I mean, the Olympics itself, it's so corrupted. The IOC or whatever it's
Yep,
called,
IOC.
they'll be corrupt forever, and they'll try to get away with things. If the refereeing for the USA men's basketball team goes their way, you'll see why. Because they want to see them in the gold medal game. You know, you want that favoritism. You want those stars in that game, or the stars of the Olympics. They're not going to let any of those stars be overshadowed. But you mentioned the Chinese team and how they try to cheat. Everybody's going to try to, cheat until they get caught, and they're just going to try it. And it's amazing how these investigations go and how long it takes. And the right people have to come out and tell you what happened. And you have to find out what happened. And you have to go places, do things to get this done. So for that newspaper to do that was amazing. But, when you talk about the Chinese swimmers and the gymnastic teams, those are factories.
You start to wonder about them too.
Yeah, because I remember there was that scandal about the gymnastic team, how much they were cheating. Here in the U.S., cheating's frowned upon, but Russia, China, wherever, that's part of the deal.
Usually your main two suspects 9 times out of 10.
Part of the deal is those two going at it, and you do all the training, but hey, here's a little boost to make you better than the U.S. If we can't be in other things, we can at least do this. So it's just going to be a part of the Olympics forever. It seems like you're never going to have a clean Olympics. Same thing with FIFA, with the soccer. I feel like that's also
the two most corrupt organizations in sports.
I think that's why I mentioned that. That's only, and then FIBA, they've done a better job. But you could definitely tell the world is turning out better players than before anyway. So I guess they're fine. But the other two are just so corrupt, and they'll be forever. And as long as people have the power to overrule others and to get away with it and overpay, you're just never going to have any fairness. And then, to be banned for life, I don't see that happening, but with Michael Phelps, that would be truly something. And I can think of Marion Jones and how much that took her out of ever competing really ever again on a national stage. You saw the price that she paid, where in China, Japan, Russia, it'll just be another day of those people.
I even think of Lance Armstrong.
I was going to mention him too.
The Tour de France.
That great story, and there's a whole 30 for 30. Of course, we lived it, we saw it. Thought, man, this guy coming back from cancer, he has these yellow bracelets that I had even.
Oh, I mean, who didn't have a Live Strong bracelet at one point in time?
I thought, man, we're all great people, and he's a great person. He's dating my favorite, woman singer of all time, Sheryl Crow, and all this and all that. And then the news comes out, and you just feel like nothing's pure anymore. But like I said, in Russia, China, that doesn't matter. What matters is the results. They have no shame, and I don't think anything is changing, basically. But that's a great statement by Michael Phelps. I hope it hits people's hearts, but I know it won't change their minds.
And I think, James, too, that I believe it was the last Winter Olympics that were also under a microscope for China also having underage skaters on the women's figure skating team. They got stripped of the gold medals, and they all went to Team USA, who had not won the gold, but because of the rules being violated, that was also a lengthy investigation. I believe that they stripped China of those medals and gave them to Team USA.
Wow.
But certainly, as you said, it's just another day at the office for China and Russia when it comes to cheating in the Olympic Games. And definitely, again, folks, Michael Phelps, legendary American male swimmer, calling for one-and-done bans if any athlete does in fact come up tainted with a banned substance during testing during the Olympic Games. Jack further says it's beyond 11:30 here in Seattle. Definitely did not believe that weed and bong would be mentioned on this program, and he also agrees that it does feel like it's always China and Russia always cheating. And also, Jack, it's also always the IOC and FIFA caught up in corruption every 4 years. All right, James, a long show, finally getting in the books here, my man. Time to go off the board. One topic you'd like to discuss that was not discussed on the program tonight, sir. What do you got?
Okay, so again, and this is just the schedule of things nowadays, but that Hall of Fame game, I didn't give you know what about. I was at the Angel game and I shouldn't have been, but when the Bears played the Texans on Thursday, I was at the Angels game, and I'd rather be at that than watch that preseason game. And even God didn't want to see it because there was the suspension of the game in, I think, the third quarter or something. That new kickoff rule, I read that
suspended.
Yeah, it was because of lightning and thunder in the area.
That makes sense.
And preseason doesn't matter.
Yeah, preseason.
No extra game for those two doesn't matter. But I don't know why those games used to matter to me. Not only because they used to be on Monday nights, and you would see the Hall of Fame ceremonies that Saturday. I think it was on that Saturday. And that led me to watching the game. This time it's reversed, where it was
Hall of Fame and then the game.
The game was Thursday, and then the Hall of Fame speeches were on Saturday, I want to say. No, Sunday. They were on Sunday. No, they were on Saturday. Wait. Saturday. And even that got delayed for 2 hours because of rain. But what bothered me to hear about the game, the Hall of Fame game on Thursday, is that the rookies didn't play. And that's where you would first see them.
And like we said, James, last Tuesday, Chicago told all the starters, you're sitting the bench. Don't even bother.
That's what I hate about it. Because back in the day, I remember, and again, it's a bad day because August 5th, Chick Hearn died. And that's how I knew about it, watching the Hall of Fame game. Well, anyway, you had like David Carr and the new Houston Texans, and they played, the bulk of the first half. Jeremy Shockey playing for the Giants, and I wanted to see how he is, and he played crazy all the time, even in that game. But not to get a chance to see Caleb Williams play, and I forget who else they drafted, that receiver for Chicago, but not to see anybody play like that. That was just horrible. And I was just thinking to myself, the league has become that bad where rookies kind of control what they do. I remember in preseason, it was like mandatory for those rookies to play. But I guess they make so much now that even though there's a cap for rookies, that they get to sit out preseason games. I guess the high-profile rookies do. And I just have a problem with that. I really do. I don't know if I could compare it to other sports where I know in the NBA the rookies play right away. But how is it in the NHL? Let's say, what's his name? Macklin, right, for the Sharks. Will he play right away in those exhibition games in the NHL for San Jose?
Yeah, usually you have a lengthy roster during preseason, so it's the entire organization practically. It's the AHL guys and the NHL guys all in camp. So usually what happens is like a couple days after the draft, they have development camp. So the rookies come to Orange County and they start practices. They do a whole week of practices, off-ice training drills. They go through height and weight. They get a weightlifting program. They get nutritional advice, and they get to work with Ducks and Gulls coaches, for example, here between Anaheim and San Diego. So they'll do that. Then they'll end their camp with a full 3-on-3 scrimmage. But during regular training camp, James, everybody in their is there. AHL guys for the draft picks will be there, the veterans will be there. Then they gradually, as they play preseason games, I think they play 6 or 8 preseason games. As the preseason goes on, usually game 1, like in years past, all the veterans sit out the first game. Then they start mixing in veterans with young guys. And gradually they begin thinning out the roster, where then you get your final say of the roster. But I would expect Celebrini, Beckett, Seneca, all those first round draft picks, they all start playing right away to start getting, for one, acclimated to the speed of the game at the NHL level, but also to start getting to know the veterans and the rookies better. But I mean, yes, James, during preseason, the whole roster comes and it's just littered with guys who are scratched who aren't going to make the roster till they start the preseason.
And I'm just thinking, and I forgot really to think about this. Totally different, schedule for NFL and for NHL, NBA, MLB, but I feel like rookies are so privileged now in the NFL that they don't have to play these preseason games. Like just taking reps before in pregame, that's all you get to see. You think about all those people that flew from Chicago or flew from Houston to try to get a glimpse of the star players, and they're not even
none of
playing.
them are playing.
I just find something wrong with that, especially with the NFL. They can price down the tickets so much, like the commissioner did or said, but I still have no reason to go because I know I'm not seeing the real players that will play in the regular season. So that's my topic, and that's my old man rant.
A couple thoughts from Jackie. First asked, does anyone know if Celebrini is going to be going back to college or signing with San Jose? Now, Jack, I can tell you that he signed his entry-level contract, but I believe, though, he still has the option to go back to college, but the Sharks would have his rights, and that would also not burn a year off that contract if he goes back to Boston University.
Wow.
Now, the entry-level contract is essentially a 3-year contract, a two-way deal between the AHL club and the NHL club, but the player has the right, if they're, in his bracket, to go back to college or go to junior hockey. But it will not burn a year off of his contract if he goes the route of going back to college. So what will probably happen, Jack, and I don't want to speak for my organization, but I believe, though, that Beckett Seneca, the number 3 pick that the Ducks picked, he has the option to go to junior hockey up in Canada. So you can either go to the NHL or you can either fall back to junior hockey or go back to college. So even then, with him signing, the Sharks have his rights for the next 3 years until he comes to the NHL. So it's very weird, Jack, though, how those contracts work with the entry-level deal at this rate. He also said, real quick, sorry, guys, that I missed out on the Ayuk topic, but here's my thoughts. If you want to get paid the most, New England is offering to make you a top 4 or top 5 paid wide receiver, but you don't want to go there because they suck. But you also want to be on a winning team. Well, you can't make that much because all of them are salary cap restricted. So it's like he wants his cake and eat it too. Can't have it both ways. James?
It's the whole process of holding out and knowing your worth and knowing how much you are worth, like Drake said. That's the bad issue of this, where it's like you're on a winning team, but you know that you're going to have to work one more year to get what you want, but you want it now, and you do what it takes to get it. There's cautionary tales about this. Le'Veon Bell, remember him with the Steelers?
Yes.
He held out and eventually got what he wanted money-wise, but he went to the lowly New York Jets, and we didn't see him ever again.
And then they waived him, and they're still stuck in cap hell, I think, because of that.
Yeah, that was a bad, deal for him and the Jets because they had no talent around him, and you realize you left a Steeler team that would block for you and you could run through holes for. no matter how patient he was, and I loved him as a patient runner, but he became impatient with the Jets. So it's a cautionary tale, where, yeah, you can hold out or hold in, and then you could go to another team, but you realize you might have left something that's golden, no pun intended for the 49ers, where you have a chance to win the Super Bowl this year. And then let's say you ball out, you get the Super Bowl MVP or whatever the case is, then your money even goes higher because, other teams know you worked for it. But it's a risk, and you're doing it for the guaranteed money. And it's so unfortunate to see sometimes, but it's just because of the way the pay structure is in the NFL, where you get guaranteed contracts, but they could cut you at any second.
With that, a couple more thoughts from Jack. We're going to kind of speed up the process here to get out of here before midnight, but I doubt what's going to happen, but it's all right. It's all good. Jack also says that watching Joe Buck and Troy Aikman added to the awfulness of the whole night. Jack also said, hey, is Macklin going to be wearing a white long-sleeve shirt and offending people again with laughing faces across the board? I doubt it. He'll probably be wearing a short shirts and flip-flops when he goes to San Jose pretty soon. One more from Jack real quick, James, before we get to my off-the-board topic here. What do you guys think of Frank Gore getting snubbed from the Hall of Fame?
Him and Antonio Gates, but
those were the two biggest surprises, if you ask me, by far and away.
They'll get in next year. I have no doubt about it.
Yeah, I think it'll be next year for both A. Gates and Frank Gore. Okay. With that, James, I wrote about this earlier for my off-the-board topic, and, you were saying about how August 5th, you always remember it for Chick Hearn's passing. Well, August 6th belongs to Mr. Padre forever. Twice on August 6th on his mom's birthday, Tony reached two of the best milestones in Major League Baseball. On this date in 1993, against the newly formed Colorado Rockies, in a doubleheader at San Diego Jack Murphy Stadium, Tony Gwynn got his 2,000th base hit off of left-hand pitcher Bruce Ruffin. Then 25 years ago today, holy smokes, in Montreal, Tony with a base hit to center field off Dan Smith for his 3,000th base hit, a day that lives on here in San Diego for Mr. Padre. And, James, it was cool that the Padres put out about his 3,000th hit today on their social channels. I was a little surprised, though, there wasn't mention of 2,000, though, because it happened, though, at that time, James, in 93. Yeah, the Padres were in a massive rebuild. They had just had the fire sale of McGriff and Sheffield. They got Trevor Hoffman, and they were at a very, very low point underneath that ownership group. And like always, man, Tony Gwynn would be the only talking point for that Padre ball club. And I think about it so much, though, because of the fact that my parents, had season seats for every event at Qualcomm back in the 90s, all the way to my brother and I came along until the Padres went to Petco, and then they sold off their skybox that, ironically enough, was the same skybox owned by one Alex G. Spanos, the one-time Charger owner at one point in time. But I think about 2,000 a lot, James, more than I think about 3,000, because look where the Padres were at in 93, underneath terrible ownership, not filling up Jack Murphy Stadium, selling off, Fernandez and Joe Carter and Sheffield and McGriff all were gone. Fans had a major revolt against the ownership group. Again, they hated Trevor Hoffman when he first came here from Florida, because we just dealt our best home run hitter for some scrub closer. Like, what are we doing here? I think about 2,000 more, because it was, I think, more of a talking point in 93 than 3,000 against Montreal, because, James, we were literally a year off the World Series run in 98.
Yeah, growing up, I didn't really know the Padres or Tony Gwynn, but I started watching baseball and know more of Tony Gwynn. And, the Angels never had a 3,000, hitter in their franchise, of course, other from Rockaroo, but, he was a twin. And I didn't even know about that until after, Tony, of course. But, they're even doing a giveaway. I think it's next week?
It's Monday. I'll be there.
That shirt. jersey for a shirt, and that's how big that moment is. That's how big he was, Mr. Padre, and the stories are pretty cool. I heard Mark Grant talk about it. I'm trying to remember. It was, yeah, like you mentioned, it was a mom's birthday, and he did it on the same day. And then I think, what was it? The series before, Tony Gwynn was just stuck on 2009 in St. Louis.
And Mark McGwire hit his 50th of the year, I believe, or 70th of the year, whatever it was. Yeah.
But, the cameras were following, Gwynn, behind the scenes in St. Louis, thinking it was going to happen there. And they didn't really follow it, up in Montreal. But it's one of those big moments, of course, in Padre history, right up there with all the World Series appearances and, Trevor Hoffman's 500 save, 600 save, or 500 save, I should say. It means a lot to a community like that. Yeah, and, COVID, I know it was a bad thing, but it gave me an opportunity to watch that. I think it was the second game of that doubleheader you mentioned, when there was no Padre games on Fox Sports San Diego. They showed that game, and I got to watch that moment as if, I was, watching it, or if I was there or whatever. They had the radio feed, of course, for it. And then I always see or hear the Channel 4 feed, and then Jerry Coleman on the radio calling it too. So August is like at the beginning here. It's a heavy month, because I believe Vince Scully passed away 2 years ago on August 2nd. Thank you. Yeah. So, and again, how I found out Chick Hearn died, watching that Hall of Fame game. That's always a thing that I'll remember forever. So there's little things, whether it's good or bad or just sad or happy. It's part of the life. It's part of the moments that you have in your sports life. And all the ones we mentioned is really, really huge. And somebody did mention that to me about the MLB Hall of Fame. How is it bad that if you don't get 3,000 hits, you can still be a Hall of Famer?
Right.
And I just hate how kind of the bar has been lowered for pretty much everything in life. But
we talked about that last Tuesday.
Yeah, especially though for the Hall of Fame requirements. And I also got to mention with Tony Gwynn, even though he's getting older in his career, the fact that he still hit over 300 almost all those years, I think, except one, I want to say.
19 straight seasons hitting over 300.
Ridiculous. And now you have maybe, 5 or 6, 7 guys that are over 300 now, even, that I could think of, who are stars.
Rice.
You still have, like, the Freddie Freemans of the world. Profar out of nowhere. Jackson Merrill at one point was, I think. But it's just a dying art. And I just wish that it was, I wish, regular hitting was back. But it's just another thing baseball has ruined. And to be honest, I don't know if we'll see another 3,000 hitter, to get the hits. I don't know if we'll ever get that again. The next one will be, well, I know what we had. Albert Pujols, I think, had the last one, or Miguel Cabrera. Those were the 2 last ones. And after that, it's like maybe Aaron Judge will get it. I don't think Mike Trout will get it. I don't think he'll get 500 home runs. But maybe Aaron Judge will be the next one. That's all I could think of really out there. So it's becoming a rarer feat, along with the innings of pitchers for wins. That's going to be lowered as well.
You're not going to see a lot of 20-game winners anymore.
Never again, I don't think. So I got to imagine, do you know where you were when Tony got that 3,000 hit. Were you watching the game?
Yep, me and my folks were at home watching the game, and we all went nuts when he got it. And then I think we won the game 14-5, I think, over Montreal that night. Like, they really poured it on after Tony got the hit, and then the Padre bats came alive against the Expos that night. I think the coolest thing, though, about that game, James, is that Kerwin Danley, who was the first base umpire, was a college teammate of Tony at San Diego State, and he came over and gave him a ginormous hug after he got on first base and the team began coming out of the dugout. I thought that was really cool, too.
Yeah, and I didn't know about Kerwin Danley. He was always one of those notable umpires. He was always kind of relaxed. That's what I liked about him. But yeah, I didn't know that about Kerwin Dantley and Gwen. I do remember the mom out there with flowers, and
yes,
Phil Nevin coming out, and Bruce Bochy, calling everybody to come out. Davey Lopes was the first base coach.
Mm-hmm.
Cool thing about Davey Lopes, I know he tried managing, I think, in Milwaukee at one point, or Seattle, and that didn't work out. I think it was Milwaukee. Well, anyway, he always kept people's minds in the game, pre-game. And I always liked that about Davey Lopes. He was a great teacher, and, learning from Mario Wills, there's always a generational, teaching that goes on and on and on. And, Gwynn doing that at San Diego State when he managed there all those years, that had to be great as well. And you always hear Strasburg, all the stories from him about, being managed by Tony Gwynn and others talking about it. Just obviously the best hitter in our lifetimes. No doubt about it.
Yeah, without a doubt, man. And, James, you brought up about, Tony's 2000th and then 3000th, Trevor Hoffman going 53 for 54 with saves in 98, him surpassing Lee Smith, 500 saves, 600 saves. I think what's lost in the shuffle with Trevor, other than Greg Olson in Baltimore, Trevor Hoffman was the first closer to use introduction music when the Padres pulled out Hell's Bells by AC/DC in July of 98 against Houston when they first played it. And then it, took off from there, where literally I think the Yankees even said that during the World Series when they would play Hell's Bells, that's where they got the idea for Mariano to come out to enter Sandman by Metallica. So you can thank the Padres for starting the whole trend of closer introduction music during the 98 World Series run. But certainly August 6th is a huge day in San Diego for the Padre perspective. Again, Tony Gwynn, 2,000th base hit and 3,000th base hit on the same day in 1993 and 25 years ago on August 6th in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. We're literally, by the way, James, there is now 2 new beers by Ale Smith Brewing for hit 2,000 and hit 3,000. With that, Mr. Gonzales, we're well beyond our limits here for time. Mr. Gonzales, final thoughts for today and tonight's program are what?
When you mention all these milestones and, people passing away and the years that you mentioned it happened in, and how many years have gone by, it kind of makes me feel kind of old. And the music we listen to, we've been in that private chat and you've been sending those, reels about people listening to music that was so many years ago. It was just better. Everything was better back then.
Yep.
And that's why it's cherished so much. I think it all just accumulates to what we were just talking about. And so whenever the years get mentioned and how many years ago something was, it don't matter to me. It just means that time is going by, but the memories are always there.
Of course. Yeah, I mean, for those of you who are going to see Deadpool 3 and did not grow up with the opening song to the first song played during the opening credits, it's not the Deadpool dance. That is NSYNC. That is a group that James and I, in some capacity, grew up listening to. So don't be calling it the Deadpool dance. We've been doing that dance for my entire life, practically, like 25, 30 years since that song came out on No Strings Attached many years ago. And it was on like every mixtape CD I would burn, or like mixtape CD my brother and I would burn back in the day with all those pop hits. So don't be, screwing with our childhoods here by calling it the Deadpool song. It's that's No Strings Attached. Bye. Get out of here. With that in mind, though, folks, again, Press Row is back this week, though, but we're moving it back one day to Friday due to Thursday beginning my 16th year behind a public address microphone, coming up on Thursday for a new round of games for the upcoming 2024-25 season, beginning at the University of San Diego against San Diego State University in women's soccer at the friendly confines of the University of San Diego at 7 p.m. local time. With that in mind, James, what's right now being consummated and talked about and rumored to be talked about for Entertainment Hour on Friday?
Well, I usually get that out on Thursday, so
I just do every time, but it's hard not
no,
to.
Yeah. It's good though. It's good though because it's a reminder to do it. Of course, we'll have the stables of celebrity birthdays, which I love guessing. If you ever see the show,
good one.
Because last week, I don't think I got one right, but I was always a year off before. So somebody was 46, I kept saying 45. Somebody was 37, I was saying 36. So I hope this time...
Well, if this was The Price is Right, you'd be winning. So
yeah.
Take it with a grain of salt there, buddy.
I think there was even one, because they talk about wrestlers and their birthdays and how old they are. I think one of them, I said $1. And everybody knew what the hell I was talking about, luckily. So we'll have that. We'll have the latest gossip and news, maybe a Taylor Swift story to appease Dragon Viper, a.k.a. Randy. I know how much he loves Taylor Swift. So we got to get a story in whenever we can, even if it's her, swallowing another fly in Italy or wherever. We'll have our lists. We'll have trivia at the end, which Dragon Viper will drown me out. So that'll be fun on Friday. Thursday, we'll get On Deck going again. Luckily, we had the last Wednesday show with Jason, and congrats to him, by the way. If you saw his news earlier today, he started an agency, I believe. Worldwide Sports Agency, I think it is. So congrats to him. But he hosted the special On Deck
Trade Deadline special, yes.
Yeah. So that means I'm going to have to come up with some tomorrow for Thursday's show. We're going to talk, of course, about the White Sox losing streak, the A's selling their part of the Coliseum.
And that jumbled NL wild card race that now has San Diego on top of it. Unbelievable. We'll go through the standings of all that. And then what I loved, what I've instituted, was put in some reels. And there's always something going on where there's college baseball, minor league baseball, funny moments in Major League Baseball, or we'll call out somebody not hustling. We'll have it all for you there. The viral moments, let's just say, as Kicking It would do with theirs. And hopefully I'll be on Kicking It this Thursday. So yeah, lots of programming on Coast to Coast Entertainment Network. I'm also on Halos in the Infield. I'm hoping to get a podcast or two in before the weekend is over. Lots of Angels news going on. Of course, it's bad news. It's never good news. But there's been major injuries again. And it's just, following this team is just crazy. But you can say, hey, at least we're not the White Sox. Yeah, pretty much, sadly. With that in mind, folks, a great show tonight. Very long program. Sorry about that. James had to step away for a few minutes while I held down the fort here to talk a bit more about Major League Baseball and that game at the Motor Speedway coming up next season. Shout out to Big B, Steve Roth, Christy Wilson, and our good man Jack Braun for jumping on late here tonight for this program. Again, very hot and steamy Tuesday into Wednesday morning. Again, folks, Press Row moving back a day to Friday. And also, folks, we do promise you that the Puck and Roll podcast for the San Diego Elite Draft League is back on Sunday. We are going to be working, folks, remotely on Sunday between myself, Gabe John, and our league commissioner, Josh Fontaine. Will join the program on Sunday, 3:30 p.m. on Sunday, before the gentlemen head to their respective men's league games on Sunday. We're moving it up a half hour from 4 o'clock to 3:30. On Sunday, we're going to have a full reset coming out of our 3-week break to recap a couple of weeks of missed action and talk a bit, though, too, about a huge tournament coming to San Diego and to our home rink at the end of August for the North American Roller Hockey Championships, better known among all of us roller hockey dudes as NARCH, coming up later this month. With that, folks, for James Gonzales, yours truly, Callan McClurg, saying good night and good day from Southern California. Till next time, folks, have a good night. Bye-bye.